Look, I'd like to read you from a press release from the Secretary to Parliament. We recently used access to information legislation to get a list of parliamentarians who've been involved, allegedly, in defrauding Parliament and the taxpayer for travel vouchers. And Mr. Dingaan released the following. Parliament is mindful that the Promotion of Access to Information Act aims to foster a culture of transparency in public and private bodies. The institution is also mindful that the whole point of PIA is to avoid litigation rather than propagate it. I'm really not sure which is sadder, whether Mr. Dingaan believes this or whether he does not. Because the claim is obvious nonsense. It took us nearly 2 years, many lawyers, advocates, and a High Court judgment later to get that. That's not fostering transparency, and it's not avoiding litigation. I think that's part of the problem with access to information litigation in South Africa, is it's actually, I'm not sure that it does actually foster transparency. In many ways, it could be argued that it sets a process by which you request information, and that process culminates in having to go to court. So, on the contrary, instead of fostering transformation, it can, in a sense, be seen as fostering a bureaucratic way of preventing access to information by ensuring that only people like Nick and ourselves who are prepared to go all the way to the High Court will actually request information. We do request information and we get compliance over much more trivial issues, and that in itself, or trivial information that we want, and that in itself is very concerning. Why should one have to use access to information, for example, to get information that should be freely available? And that's a concern to me, because I have worked with journalists in community media, for example, who say they didn't know they were allowed access to the municipal budget. Should they use PIA to get the municipal budget? And I said, no, you just go down to the municipality and ask the municipal manager, if he is in his office, to provide you with a copy of the budget. So, the only message I really want to get across is that very few people actually use access to information legislation. And of a far greater concern to me is that in order to foster a culture of transparency in countries like South Africa and many other countries in Africa, we need a citizenry which understands its rights to information and the right to accountability and demands this information, because I don't think any legislation actually fosters a culture of transparency. The only thing that does that is a citizenry that demands that, and I think that's where journalists play an absolutely vital and a fantastic role. They've been doing it really well in educating the public, in informing them of their rights to information, and in many cases of providing them with information. I'm willing to guess most journalists get way more information leaked to them than they do through access to information legislation. I'm not a journalist, and I certainly do get far more information leaked to me than I do get through access to information legislation.
Very